It wasn't being seated at the back that hurt. It was realizing my own daughter had put me there on purpose. I sat at table 14, the one tucked behind a decorative pillar, half hidden from the dance floor. The tablecloth was the same ivory as the others, the centerpiece just as elegant, but I knew what this table was. It was the table for people you had to invite but didn't want seen. The elderly aunt who might say something embarrassing, the second cousin who drinks too much, and apparently, the mother of the bride. My name card read Margaret in gold calligraphy. Not mother of the bride, not even mom, just Margaret. Like I was a distant relative they'd met twice at funerals. The wedding was beautiful. I'll give them that. 300 guests, a converted barn venue in Vermont. Fairy lights draping from the rafters like frozen stars. My daughter Jenna had dreamed of this wedding since she was 6, cutting pictures from magazines and gluing them into a scrapbook I still have somewhere in my closet. I paid for that scrapbook. I paid for a lot of things, but I didn't pay for this wedding. That honor went to Richard's parents, the Caldwells, who made sure everyone knew it. They sat at table 1, of course, right next to the head table where Jenna and Richard exchanged loving glances every few minutes. Mrs. Caldwell wore a cream dress that probably cost more than my car. She gave a speech about welcoming Jenna into the family, as if my daughter had been an orphan before meeting her precious son. I clapped. I smiled. That's what women like me do. My grandson, Tyler, found me during the cocktail hour. He was 16, lanky, with his father's eyes and my late husband's stubborn jaw. He weaved through the crowd holding 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "Grandma, why are you back here?" I took the glass he offered. "It's a lovely spot. I can see everything." He looked around, unconvinced. "You can see a pillar." "Tyler, it's fine. Go enjoy the party." He didn't move. "Mom said you were supposed to be at table 3. I saw the original seating chart in her office last month. You were right next to Aunt Rachel." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Plans change, sweetheart." "Yeah," he frowned. "I guess they do." He left, but not before squeezing my shoulder in a way that reminded me so much of his grandfather that my throat tightened. Walter would have hated this. He would have marched right up to that head table and asked our daughter what she thought she was doing. But Walter died 4 years ago, and I'd been navigating this family alone ever since. The speeches began after dinner. Richard's father talked about legacy and ambition. Richard's college roommate told an inappropriate story that made everyone laugh, except me. The maid of honor, Jenna's best friend from law school, described my daughter as self-made and independent, and someone who never let anything hold her back. I thought about the years I worked double shifts at the hospital so Jenna could have piano lessons, the car I sold so she could study abroad in London, the retirement fund I drained so she could go to law school debt-free. Self-made. I suppose that's one way to describe it. And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The DJ announced, "And now, a few words from the parents of the bride and groom." Mr. Caldwell stood first, his speech polished and rehearsed. Mrs. Caldwell followed, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief that probably cost $50. The crowd applauded warmly, then silence. The DJ looked toward my table. I started to stand. "Thank you all so much." Jenna's voice cut through the room. She had taken the microphone. "That was beautiful. Now, let's get this party started. DJ, hit it." The music exploded. People cheered. The dance floor filled. And I sat back down. My prepared speech folded in my clutch, my hands trembling not from age but from something I couldn't name yet. Tyler appeared again, his face red. "Grandma, did she just—" "It's fine," I said automatically. "She probably forgot. It's a busy day." But we both knew that wasn't true. This wasn't the first time Jenna had forgotten me. Or rather, this wasn't the first time she'd remembered to forget. It started small, as these things do. After Walter died, I sold our house in Connecticut. Too many memories, too many rooms, too much silence. Jenna suggested I move closer to them, to the townhouse she and Richard had just bought in Boston. "You can help with Tyler," she'd said. Be part of his life. We'd love having you nearby. I believed her. I sold the house where I'd raised my children, where Walter had proposed on the back porch, where I'd planted roses that took 15 years to bloom just right. I moved into a small apartment 20 minutes from their place, close enough to be useful but far enough not to be a burden. At first, it was good. Sunday dinners, school pickups. I was needed, and being needed felt like being loved. I didn't notice when the calls started spacing out, when the invitations became obligations, when my presence shifted from wanted to expected to tolerated. The first real sign was Tyler's 13th birthday. I'd asked Jenna what he wanted, offered to contribute to a gift. She'd waved me off. Don't worry about it, Mom. We've got it handled. Just show up. So I showed up with a card and a check for $200, money I couldn't really afford but gave anyway because that's what grandmothers do. The party was at a fancy restaurant downtown. I arrived to find the private room already full, the cake already cut, the presents already opened. Oh, Mom! Jenna had looked surprised. I thought I texted you. We moved it up an hour. Tyler had practice. She hadn't texted. I checked later. 3 times. I stayed anyway, sat in the corner with my cold check, watched my grandson blow out candles on a cake I hadn't helped choose. No one asked why I was late. No one seemed to notice I was there at all. That night, I told myself it was a mistake, a miscommunication. These things happen in busy families, but they kept happening. The Christmas I wasn't told about until December 22nd. The Mother's Day brunch where I was seated with Richard's business associates instead of family. The family vacation photos I found on Facebook. Places I'd never been invited. Memories I wasn't part of. Each time, I made excuses. I adapted. I lowered my expectations like someone slowly draining water from a tub, hoping no one would notice the level dropping. And no one did. Because by the time I realized what was happening, I'd already become invisible. I found out about the wedding planning through Tyler. He'd come to my apartment after school one day, something he'd started doing when things got tense at home. We'd sit at my small kitchen table, eat the cookies I always kept stocked for him, and talk about everything or nothing. Mom's going crazy with this wedding stuff, he said, mouth full of snickerdoodle. I paused. Wedding stuff? Yeah, the engagement party is next month. She's been on the phone with the Caldwells every night. I set down my coffee. Engagement party? Tyler looked at me, cookie halfway to his mouth. Wait. You didn't know? No, I didn't know. My only daughter was engaged, and I'd found out from my 16-year-old grandson over milk and cookies. I called Jenna that evening. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. Mom. Hi. What's up? Tyler mentioned an engagement party. Silence. Then, oh, right. I was going to tell you. It's just been so hectic. When were you going to tell me? Richard proposed. More silence. I could hear her choosing words carefully. It happened a few weeks ago. We wanted to keep it small at first. Just immediate family. I am immediate family. I'm your mother. I know, Mom. It's complicated. The Caldwells have very specific ideas about how things should be done, and I didn't want to overwhelm you with all the details. You know how you get. How I get. Like I was a toddler prone to tantrums. Like I was something to be managed. I'd like to be involved, I said quietly. Of course you will be. You're the mother of the bride. You'll be at all the big events. She lied, or maybe she meant it at the time. I'll never know. What I do know is that over the next 14 months, I was involved in exactly nothing. Not the dress shopping, which was a girls' day with the maid of honor and Mrs. Caldwell. Not the venue selection, which happened during a quick trip to Vermont I wasn't invited on. Not the menu tasting, the flower arrangements, the cake design, the invitations. I found out about each milestone through Tyler, or worse, through photos posted online with captions like, Best Mother-Daughter Moment featuring Jenna and Mrs. Caldwell holding champagne. Each photo was a small cut, and I bled quietly, the way mothers learn to bleed. I offered to help with costs. Jenna assured me the Caldwells had it covered. I offered to address invitations. Jenna said they had a calligrapher. I offered to make my famous lemon cake for the dessert table, the one Jenna had requested for every birthday from age 5 to 25. That's sweet, Mom. But the caterer has a whole dessert station planned. You just focus on enjoying the day. Just focus on enjoying. Just sit there. Just be quiet. Just disappear. And I did. Because I thought if I was patient enough, understanding enough, small enough, they'd eventually make room for me again. They didn't. The night before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner. I wasn't invited. I found out about this one through email, an email I wasn't supposed to see. Tyler had borrowed my laptop to print something for school and forgot to log out of his account. A message popped up from Jenna to the family group chat, the one I'd never been added to. Reminder, rehearsal dinner tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Heritage. Mom doesn't know about this one. Let's keep it that way. She'll just stress everyone out with her comments. We'll deal with her at the wedding. Deal with me. Like I was a problem to be solved. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after reading that. The same table where I'd helped Jenna with homework. The same table where I'd rolled out pie dough while she told me about her first crush. The same table where Walter had sat the morning he died. Coffee half finished. Newspaper open to the crossword he never completed. Something changed in me that night. Not anger exactly. Something quieter. Something that had been building for years. Brick by brick. Silence by silence. I didn't cry. I just decided. The wedding day arrived sunny and mild. Perfect October weather. The kind Walter used to call apple cider days. I wore the navy dress I'd bought 3 months earlier, before I understood my role in this production. It was modest, appropriate, forgettable, which was exactly what they wanted. I arrived early, as mothers of brides do. Jenna was in the bridal suite, surrounded by bridesmaids and makeup artists, and Mrs. Caldwell, who was adjusting her veil with proprietary hands. "Mom!" Jenna looked up with practiced surprise. "You're here early. I thought you might need help. We've got everything covered. Why don't you go find your seat? The ceremony starts in an hour." She turned back to her reflection before I could respond. Mrs. Caldwell caught my eye in the mirror and smiled the way you smile at service staff. I found my seat. Row 7, left side. Not the front row. Not even the second. Row 7. Behind a man tall enough to block my view, and next to a woman I'd never met, who spent the entire ceremony on her phone. I watched my daughter walk down the aisle, escorted by no one. She'd decided to walk alone, a feminist statement. She'd told the wedding magazine that featured her dress. She didn't mention that her father was dead and her mother was sitting in row 7 like a distant relative. The ceremony was beautiful. I cried when they exchanged vows. I cried when they kissed. And I cried when I realized no one was looking at me. No one was sharing this moment with me. No one even remembered I was there. At the reception, I found my place card at table 14. I should have left. Any reasonable person would have left, but I stayed because some part of me still believed in miracles, still thought Jenna might look across the room and realize what she'd done, might come to me with tears in her eyes and say she was sorry. She didn't. She danced with Richard. She posed for photos with the Caldwells. She threw her bouquet to a crowd of shrieking bridesmaids. She did everything a bride is supposed to do. And then came the speeches. I'd written mine a month earlier, stayed up late, choosing every word. I talked about the day Jenna was born, how she came into the world screaming and never really stopped, how that fierce spirit had carried her through every challenge. I talked about Walter, how proud he would have been, how much he'd loved her. I talked about what I wished for her future, what marriage really means, what love looks like after 30 years. It was the best thing I'd ever written. And I never got to say it. When the DJ skipped me, when Jenna grabbed the microphone and redirected the room, something snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet internal click, like a lock finally finding its key. I stood up. Tyler saw me first. "Grandma?" I didn't answer. I walked through the tables, past the confused faces and the whispered comments toward the front of the room where the DJ booth stood next to a stack of speakers. The music was loud. People were dancing. Jenna and Richard were in the center of the floor, lost in each other. I picked up the spare microphone. "Excuse me." My voice cut through the bass, thin but clear. A few people turned. The DJ looked alarmed and reached for his controls. "I'd like to say a few words." The music faded. The dance floor slowed. Jenna turned, and I watched her face move through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, embarrassment, fear. "Mom, what are you?" "I'm doing what mothers do at weddings, sweetheart. I'm giving a speech." The room had gone silent. 300 people staring at an old woman in a navy dress holding a microphone like a weapon. For those who don't know me, I'm Margaret. I'm the mother of the bride. A few uncomfortable murmurs. I saw Mrs. Caldwell leaning toward her husband, whispering something urgent. "I wasn't supposed to speak tonight. I know that. My daughter has made a lot of decisions about this wedding without me, and this was one of them. But I've been quiet for a long time now, and I think I've earned a few minutes." Jenna took a step toward me. "Mom, please." "I paid for your piano lessons," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "Every week for 8 years. I sold my car so you could study in London. I emptied my retirement account so you could go to law school without debt. I moved from the only home I'd ever known so I could be closer to you, because you asked me to." The silence was complete now. Even the children had stopped fidgeting, and somewhere along the way, you decided I wasn't good enough anymore. Too old, too embarrassing, too much. I looked at Mrs. Caldwell. "I know you paid for this wedding. I know you picked the flowers and the venue and the dress. I know you've been more of a mother to my daughter these past 2 years than I've been allowed to be. And I don't blame you for that. You saw an opportunity, and you took it." I turned back to Jenna. "But I do blame you. Because you let it happen. You chose it." Tears were streaming down my daughter's face. Part of me wanted to stop, to comfort her, to go back to being the mother who smoothed everything over. But that mother had been dying for years, and tonight she finally let go. I've been seated at the back of this room, and the back of your life, for too long. I've been forgotten, overlooked, managed. I've read the emails where you call me a problem. I've seen the photos of family moments I wasn't invited to. I've felt myself becoming a ghost in a family I built with my own hands. I took a breath. But I'm not a ghost. I'm not a problem. I'm your mother, and I deserve better. I set the microphone down on the DJ's table. The click echoed through the silent room. "I wish you both a beautiful marriage. I hope it's filled with the kind of love that doesn't forget where it came from." I walked out through the main entrance, past the fairy lights and the flower arrangements and the ice sculpture shaped like 2 swans. The night air was cool and sweet, and I breathed it in like I'd been drowning. Tyler caught up with me in the parking lot. He was crying, which made me cry too. "That was amazing," he said. "That was probably a mistake." "No." He grabbed my hand. "No, Grandma. That was the truest thing anyone said all day." We stood there for a moment, grandmother and grandson, under a sky full of stars that didn't care about seating charts or speeches or family politics. "Come on," I said finally. "Let's get pancakes." He laughed through his tears. "It's 10 o'clock at night. Best time for pancakes." We found a diner 3 miles down the road, one of those 24-hour places with sticky menus and coffee that tastes like it's been brewing since the 70s. We ordered a stack of chocolate chip pancakes and didn't talk about the wedding. We talked about Walter instead, about the time he taught Tyler to fish and they both fell in the lake, about his terrible jokes and his wonderful hugs, about how much he would have hated seeing me seated at table 14. "He would have flipped that table," Tyler said. "Yes, he would have. I think he'd be proud of you tonight." I thought about that. About what it means to be proud. About what it costs to finally speak. I think," I said slowly, "he'd be proud that I finally remembered I'm allowed to have a voice." Jenna called 3 days later. I let it go to voicemail. Then again, and again. On the fourth call, I answered. "Mom." Her voice was raw. "Can we talk?" I could have said no. Part of me wanted to. But I'd raised her, and some things don't disappear just because they hurt. She came to my apartment that evening. She looked tired, older than 34, like the wedding had aged her. She sat at my kitchen table, the same place she'd sat for decades of homework and heartbreaks, and she didn't speak for a long time. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "For which part?" She flinched. All of it. The seating, the speech, the emails, everything. I waited. "I don't know how it happened," she continued. "I didn't wake up one day and decide to push you away. The Caldwells have so much, and they know so many people, and I wanted to fit in with their world. And you remind me of before. Of being poor, of struggling, of everything I worked so hard to leave behind. I remind you of who you actually are." She started crying. "I'm so ashamed." "You should be." That landed hard. She looked up at me, surprised. I'd never been this direct with her. Never let her see my anger without padding it in forgiveness. "But shame isn't enough," I continued. "Feeling bad doesn't fix anything. I need you to do better, Jenna. Not promise better. Do it." How? I don't know yet. But I know it starts with you deciding I'm worth the effort. And right now, I'm not sure you've decided that. She didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one yet. She left an hour later, still crying, still uncertain. I didn't comfort her. I didn't tell her it was okay. Because it wasn't okay, and I was done pretending otherwise. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not for anything dramatic, just to update my will, review my accounts, make sure everything was in order. I'd spent decades putting everyone else's needs first. It was time to put my own name back in the ledger. I started volunteering at the library, something I'd wanted to do for years but never had time for because I was always available for babysitting or errands or whatever else the family needed. I joined a book club. I took a painting class where I was terrible but happy. I learned to say no. Not angry no's, not bitter no's, just calm, clear no's that didn't require explanation or apology. No, I can't watch Tyler this weekend. No, I won't be attending the Caldwell holiday party. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Each no was a small reclamation. Each no gave me back a piece of myself I'd lost. Tyler kept coming by. Every week, sometimes more. We'd eat cookies and talk, or sit in comfortable silence, or watch old movies I remembered from his grandfather's favorites. He never asked me to forgive his mother. He just showed up, again and again, proving that presence without agenda is its own kind of love. One evening, about 2 months after the wedding, he brought me something. A small wooden box, old and scratched, something I recognized immediately. "Where did you find this?" "Mom's closet." She was going to throw it away during the move. The move. Jenna and Richard had bought a new house, bigger, further from the city, further from me. I hadn't been invited to see it. I opened the box. Inside were the things I thought I'd lost forever. Walter's wedding ring. The pearl earrings my mother gave me on my 18th birthday. A pressed flower from our first anniversary. Letters I'd written Jenna when she went to summer camp. Letters she'd promised to keep forever. She was going to throw them away. I held the box in my lap, feeling the weight of it. The history. "Grandma?" Tyler looked worried. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, and meant it. "Yes, I think I finally am." Because here's what I learned in those months after the wedding. Being okay isn't about being forgiven, or being included, or being needed. It's about knowing your own worth, even when no one else does. It's about taking up space, even when they try to shrink you. It's about speaking, even when they want you silent. Jenna and I are better now. Not perfect, not like before, but better. She's learning to see me as a person rather than a function. I'm learning to let her fail at it sometimes. We have dinner once a month, just the two of us, and sometimes it's awkward, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's just there. Two women trying to rebuild something that almost broke completely. I still have my table, not table 14, but my kitchen table, the one where I sit every morning with my coffee and my crossword, the one where Tyler still shows up with his appetite and his honesty, the one where I've learned to eat alone without feeling lonely. And if you're listening to this, if you've ever been pushed to the back, seated behind the pillar, forgotten in the group chat, remember this. You don't need their permission to stand. You don't need their invitation to speak. You don't need their approval to matter. You just need to remember that you already do. The chair they pushed you out of? Build your own. The table they didn't save you a seat at? Set your own. And if they don't like it, let them be uncomfortable, because you've been uncomfortable long enough. It's their turn now.